Good afternoon. I'd like to call the meeting to order and we'll start with the pledge of allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We will dispense with the approval of minutes as they were being worked on.
You need to speak up, Tom.
I say we will dispense with the approval of the minutes as they still are in preparation. Two possible dates for the May meeting would be the day after Memorial Day or the week before Memorial Day, the 20th or the 28th. Was there any sense from those present about that?
Either.
I'm sorry, the 28th or the 20th.
So we can use.
Okay. All right. For the moment, we'll go with the 20th.
Yeah, make a motion.
Yep. Is there a motion for that? Second? All those in favor? Okay. Just for those of you present, we do have only a quorum of 3 members. Okay, so if you would like to adjourn anything to another meeting where you would have more members of the board to work with, just let us know. But today, for any approval, all 3 members present have to approve of the application. Okay. And we'll start off with 149 Cheesecake.
We got the minute. Oh, good boy.
There's nothing. Yes. She knew that. She just forgot. Okay. 149. Matt Lucas.
And Kissinger, McDonough, and Conway Architects.
The two partners that we just got, or the.
We get one. To indicate some of the changes that we've made, we made some changes to the material choices. The last time we were discussing bringing some samples in, which I have brought.
Can you remind us briefly of the different applications in each one, just for the record?
Different applications of
Each time that you've been presenting in front of us.
Changes.
Yeah, I just think of.
Okay, so first, just the memory. First, we were discussing a lot of the industrial look to it. We tried to minimize a lot of the industrial look. The 2-story boxy structure of it, so we started playing around with. I think I'm confusing the second meeting as well, but introducing cantilevered structures. So the front of it, we cantilevered out to the front. Back, we did some overhang areas, created the 2nd-story balcony, kind of wrapping the whole back area to eliminate that just 2-story boxy structure to it. So that was the main comments that we got, and material choices as well.
And so this is your 3rd or 4th meeting?
This is our 4th.
Thank you.
So to continue the materials that we have chosen on this one now, is we're doing an 8-inch horizontal siding material. It is Mojave thermal Doug fir. And it's a weathered taupe. For our trim band material and any accent walls, we're using an Akoya smooth material, Delta black is the color. Color choice.
Delta is the brand.
Delta Millworks is the company, yeah.
Sorry, Dan, what's the color?
For which one?
For the, sure, yes,
The trim bands are Delta black.
thank you. Sorry.
So that's that material, so we'll have horizontal siding in this color. And trim and accented walls in this. Have the black windows. Or it's ebony is the color.
And that's in matte finish,
For which one?
the windows.
The windows, it is, does not say, but it is somewhat of a.
Okay.
matte finish.
There was a conversation too about some of the screening on windows, I recall, which you did.
We did
and
discuss some of the screening material that I learned, so we do still have some of that in the front, which is that second image. So we were just covering some of the stair tower area, which is towards the right, having a line of black material there. And in front of the windows on the left side too.
But the landscape plan is the same.
Landscape plan is the same.
Yeah.
And the landscape was another item that we were discussing in the previous hearings too, to basically bring the ground up to cover a lot of the columns coming down, or you don't want to see the columns around the structure. So we propose to do landscaping all around to cover that.
And I'm just noticing the columns don't have any bracing, are they simply vertical?
They're going to be moment connections in between steel,
No diagrams.
so no diameter crossways. Some of the other comments that we were receiving were the nighttime renderings. The light fixtures, I believe, were showing too much glare off of the siding. So we chose a little bit more modern light fixtures and not as much radius of light presenting from the house and off the siding.
Can you remind me the final height of the house?
The final height is 39, elevation 39. So that would be on the.
In the packet, about 5 to 6 pages from the back, is a night rendering with the vertical lighting units that you're proposing now, or is that before? I recall that they were more present before, is that correct?
Back, we did change all of the light fixtures to that new modern style lighting. Does that answer your question?
Sort of, yeah.
I believe we asked if there might be some coniferous or winter bearing plants. Does that change or is it the same?
But the landscape architect. Landscape.
To that comment, I think that was the second meeting, we had a lot of coniferous plants back in with the native cedar trees, a lot of Hollywood junipers.
I see some in the renderings, I'm just not remembering these.
So we made, for your comments, capitalize. A lot of native stuff, little blue stem, osmanthus, bayberry, Hollywood juniper, a lot of Hollywood juniper in the front.
Mhm.
And then on the back, it's very tight, so we use the privet hedge. Hide those colors. I see.
And this image here, I'm not sure which direction, I don't know if that's east or west. Are those, are these privet hedges?
So this,
These are.
the architectural rendering is trying to show more as an architect. This is the landscape. So these are the privet, and on the front we have the Hollywood juniper, the grasses. And the busy, let's more light in, we take this off.
Okay.
Do you think that it's definitely what we use? Yes. Yeah. You mean down below? Okay. Right, yeah. You do it like a step of it?
Tom is asking questions about the new light fixture, sconce, and whether there's something that might. If you look at that. This is to the south, yeah.
Yeah.
The south elevation shows in the new time illumination pack, can you move to that?
It's the one before that. Where you can see what the layout, just one compound, sorry, Alex.
Yeah, I think he's trying to think of a way of not having these lanterns. It almost looks like an abstract patterning about these lights.
The pattern, I would just say that it's just right side, outside the doors that we do have. If there was, if we could possibly make it, or give you a spec on that light, would it help out, or
I think it's showing the issue.
just the locations of these are main issue?
If you're at, you said 39 feet high for the roof.
Yeah, the top is elevation 39.
So those lanterns are 36 feet high or so.
I would say about more 30, because the ground is about 7 feet as well, so.
So I wonder if you could find one that doesn't quite shine that way.
By code, we need to, all lighting fixtures need to be downward facing anyway.
Right.
Downward facing, even if it's like not, because it's towards the house, it still has to
For
be.
dark skies and clouds, it's just what's making.
Yeah, John's in the back.
They don't seem to shine up, they do shine out in the other pictures it shows the light only coming down, so. As long as they're not illuminating upwards, then we need our lighting code.
I happened to be out for a walk a few days ago, and I brought in a photograph of a neighboring structure on this ag reserve. And granted that it is not the particular design that we're looking at right now, this is with the curtains closed. And it's just alarming.
Which house is this?
This is next door to where this is proposed.
With
This
the
is one lot
seascape.
north of 149.
So are you just concerned that,
I'm just concerned. I mean, we're basically looking at 2 more applications today that could replicate something like this.
so are you saying that you're just concerned about scale of windows and lighting?
Well, if you look at the nighttime, could you go back to some of the, I just wonder how accurate this is. It seems like the lights are off inside. Which is, right, are the lights off? They have to be.
The renderer like tried to put as many lights on the inside to reflect out.
But I mean, they're off.
We were also discussing doing some type of window treatments to the windows to reduce the amount of light coming out of the windows.
Yeah, I just don't know if the lights are on inside, which obviously defeats the purpose.
What page is that? Is that the last page?
It's almost good.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
So, giving a response to the other house that you had taken a picture of, has glass all across,
Exactly.
like the whole
Yeah.
thing. You know, I introduced a lot more wall space. I reduced the amount of windows in bathrooms, which are, to me, seem to be kind of a place that we could add some wall space. But the bedrooms, I have just 8-foot sliders, instead of having just all wall of glass throughout the entire bedrooms. And we did provide lighting calculations to
Right.
maintain the least amount of.
So just for the board's edification, we are allowed to take into account things as excessive, I can read the exact language here. Lighting so excessive as to create off-site glare, light trespass and or sky glow, it's 245-73B, lowercase c. But we need to be realistic that lighting will happen and that people have the rights to have homes and have lighting in them. So we should articulate exactly what our concerns are. Is it landscaping? Is it proximity to other structures? Aside from just lighting, what is our concern?
Right, yeah.
Well, these renderings that are showing lights on inside,
Mhm.
so they're not applicable to this application.
Well, it's all subjective. We have to remember that you could have a resident who wants to throw every light in the house on, and you could have a resident who's only here 2 weeks out of the year and who
We have
wants
to
to
think
just
of
keep
the-
lights in the living room.
We have to think of the worst case, because there's houses that are on timers that we know of. There's one and the lights are on every single night that they're here.
Mm.
There's several like that.
Is it something that we could maybe provide higher hedges around the property to prevent that light from going to other neighboring properties?
And let's not, the board, this is getting a little bit down the road, but other properties with excessive lighting, excessive sky glow. This is looking a little further afield and outside the box, but that's actionable as nuisance. If you have someone who's routinely using their property in a way that's creating light pollution, neighbors can have recourse against them by nuisance law. It might be a bit excessive to think too far into an architectural standpoint about the potential, however remote or not remote, that there could be excessive sky glow.
In this type of house also, since it's raised up due to the flood zone, are we basically going to limit ourselves to do just a 1-story structure then, essentially raised up? Since we're, as of right, we're allowed to have a 2-story structure, we're allowed to go up to elevation 39. We wanted to utilize the amount of square footage that we could get on this property.
The tinting that you had just referred to, is that something that you're open to, or is that?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes, so just print that here. We do have a 42 option, which is. That's 42% light visibility through there. We
is
could
this
go
a
as low
film
as-
that's applied to
applied
the
to the-
interior of the window?
I don't know if it's interior or exterior, it's applied, but I'm assuming that it's gonna be interior, so it doesn't get.
Right, weather, yeah.
Weather, and so we have a 35 as well. And it goes as low as 30% on one of them.
You want to take a look at that?
30%.
It's just a sensitive location.
42.
You're really seeing it from Sag Main. Obviously, the neighbors are seeing it, when you're seeing it across Sag Pond.
Right. But we tend to preserve open space, and then we do that to it, so.
Thank you. These are all different, or these,
So they have just a percentage. is-
okay, gotcha.
These are different materials, is that right?
The materials,
Yeah,
another different,
it's nano ceramic films, and then there's the translucent selective.
I think that just has to do with the amount of light that they're.
Oh, it's a big one. Did you mean that? Okay. All right. So, where are you feeling that the rendering might be a little?
I mean, in general, I think it's, we're thankful for all the efforts. You're on your fourth round, and I think it's becoming less utilitarian and brutal. And I appreciate that materials are much warmer. We worked hard to eliminate some of the glass. And I think we're pretty close to the end. It seems like the night illuminations need to be a bit more honest. And perhaps to find a light fixture that might light more evenly in a downward manner. I don't have any other comments to.
I agree with what you're saying, and I like the changes that you've made with the trim, the black trim, the softer tone, and all of that. I do still feel like it has sort of a jigsaw feel to it, but that lessens it. And what is this?
That was the old material.
Oh, that was, okay. Yeah, this is much better.
Do we have the material here?
We have a couple,
Yeah,
stories of them, yeah.
Okay.
Do you want to refer that to maybe two?
I think we're ready for that.
Okay. All right.
For the light. The architecture is further along.
All right. if you could, look at those things a little bit further.
Just for clarity, our concerns are more in terms of light pollution, light extrusion than architectural at this point, just so we make sure that the applicant, I know you've come back several times and we appreciate that, we do. We just wanna make sure that everyone's on the same page as to what we're looking for next time.
Yeah, I think one issue is there's only three of us, so there might be new comments with a new the board member. But as far as the three of us are concerned,
Anything else to score away?
I know, good amount of, I'll work on the lighting, I'll work on the next time right away, so.
as landscape renderings.
You do or don't?
I think we should hold on that.
Okay, all right.
It's not current.
Nice. Okay.
We'll retain those for the final. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Yep. I do like the sense of this thinking.
Yeah.
I think that'll help.
So we require anything on the record, are we requiring?
I'd like to get a sense of that, yeah.
Do you know which percentage? Should we just do the biggest percentage to reduce that light?
I would say the second floor, for sure.
At
First
least
floor
it's
could have,
yeah.
yeah, first floor could have less.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
And the percentage on the higher floor?
The least amount of light transmission is 30%.
Was it 30 or
30%, and then there's the highest one is 42%.
Oh.
Okay.
Motion to adjourn that,
So you,
second.
Second.
With that,
Um,
these materials, they're gonna go back in.
I think they want to keep this with the.
I'm gonna put this with the file.
Yeah.
And then you'll keep
I'm gonna
it.
keep this.
Would you like more time?
I was just wondering if we could get the sample.
Oh,
So it's not lost.
that's fine. We would like to keep the landscaping.
That's fine.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
got it, right?
Okay.
Thank you.
We can ask them, yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, Chris?
Yeah, you Bailey Larkin with Bennett and Reed, offices at 212 in Southampton. Since we were last here, we've submitted some revised architectural plans that have hopefully addressed comments raised by the board. We've also further supplemented the landscape plan and provided some specifications for the wax. Windows, we introduced Alan and Max, who are with Mitchell Whitfire and with
If you could just say your name and.
It's Max Ladder with Scott Studio.
Thank you.
And Scott was here the first time, he apologizes, he had shoulder surgery, he couldn't travel.
We understand.
He's feeling it. Sure, so I think at the last hearing, the board had some comments on stuff related to glazing area. The composition of the glass. Some of the massing of the building. And some landscape. Opportunities to screen the, the architecture soften the facade landscape. We tried to address if we could the board's concerns, and we went to speak to that. We can take the specifics of those things.
Yeah, so on the glazing, the first one was our request for low coatings, so we put a product on page 27 that you have. That we're proposing. The low coating for this project. We also have a sample of it.
I've used samples,
Yeah, as you format. Basically, pretty typical coating reduces the light by 31%.
We pass that.
Which is bad, yeah.
Heavy.
That's it. This will not throw it away.
No.
Forward.
Okay.
And what did you say, 30, what was the percentage, 30%?
31%.
31%.
Reduction in VLT. Pretty visible.
So Riley's making the window, but is this a, oh, it's a laminate interlayer,
Yeah, this is it's a double impact rated
I see.
IGU from Ryle.
But it's guardian glass.
Shall we do that?
Oh,
A couple other things on the glass, so it wasn't a specific request last time, but we did reduce the glass area a little bit by 81 square feet, which is a 2.3% reduction in the glass area. And then we also added a sheet on page 26. Just a demonstration that the house has 4 large skylights, and we're proposing to remove them all. So there'll be no upward.
Right, which if light pollution is a concern for the board, that was one thing we thought would help mitigate that.
And what's the height of the top of the roof?
It's 21 and a half is our.
And what's the mean grade?
Yes.
Yeah, we haven't mentioned.
We have a height constraints.
Right. 43.9 to. So we're at.
Looks like 15.
Separate income. Yeah, that 44.7, but I think with, I think that's like a handrail, or the glassing.
The survey mentions roughly 15 around the house. 15.5.
Oh, the grades are on this.
And then top of the septic looks like 8.5.
Yeah, we were, I think that on the rear yard is closer to. Yeah, 15. Yeah, closer to 16. I remember seeing a 17 contour line in there somewhere. But unfortunately, we had to raise the finished floor elevation to FEMA compliant levels. But we're still at human scale ceilings, 8'10".
Do you have a sample of material for the siding?
Oh, yes, we do. We even have a sample of the local beach sand. So this was this local beach sand. And then this is a GFRC siding, which is a glass fiber reinforced concrete. So it's molded from natural wood boards and then precast. And sort of intended.
And the color will never change.
And the color will. I mean, it will assume the natural weathering pattern of any material out here. So like your lichens and your like really beautiful sort of patina age. But as far as like the material itself, it's yeah. But even like the stainless on the existing house, of course, takes
And
on that.
are you mitering it at corners or how are you managing?
That's a good question. We're casting the board pattern onto 5 sides. So we're gonna most likely and we're figuring out the details now. We're gonna most likely butt joint with a like a ledger board potentially, like that kind of, or a we're not gonna 45 miter. It because we don't think that's probably a
So
good
we'll
detail.
see the exposed edge.
No, I think you'll see like a stock, like maybe like a 1x1 corner board, yeah. We'll find like a really elegant detail, but a 45 miter I don't think is the right move for this material. I mean, it can be done. We've done samples where we've done it, but and then some other exterior hardscaping materials, quartzite, natural clay. And then the typical profile sample from each lab.
I believe we may have asked for a different dimension in the outriggers or buttresses. Were you able to do that?
We did, we adjusted them and what you'll see in the renderings is, yeah, on page 10, you see, there were minor dimensional changes and now I don't want to push back, but we did look at basically what it means if they don't break the roof plane. And we looked at that internally and kind of kicked it around. And in a lot of ways, the architecture is like fundamentally based on like these vertical elements that break the roof plane, and then the much lighter horizontal members that span the openings, and then the lightness of the glass that fills in the rest of the structure. And that's sort of fundamental to like how we conceived of this project.
So they weren't adjusted.
No, they were, yeah,
Actually, sorry, it's on page 9.
they were adjusted. I was just pointing out the fact that they still break the roof line. So I don't know to your eye, feel, I mean, we did a couple feet here, but there.
I think the dimensions before the furthest was like
or 20. Yeah, it was like 30.
They were adjusted 16 inches.
And 16 inches.
The two on the right, one. We're sort of sticking out. One on the left are.
Yeah.
So it's those two on the right.
And the reason, I don't know if you guys care, but the reason they break the roof line is they sort of they bisect the entire in section, like transverse section through the building, and they express themselves on both sides. And then you can see them from the exterior looking in, from the interior looking out, and you read that continuity. So that was sort of the design philosophy behind it.
So where are we with percentages of the glass then? For the south,
We have numbers for you. I mean, we're still relatively lower than the, previous iteration of the project, of course, which we acknowledged last time.
looks like 43.4.
Yeah.
Did you say south?
You got it. South elevation,
What was it before?
it was 41.66.
Which I'm creating is the existing elevation.
Yeah, I'm looking at the existing is 43.4, so
Yeah, and now we're down to the proposed percentage is 30.63. So
and how much square footage is that?
Yeah, we're looking, I think,
he's
different
talking about the
calculations.
elevation, 43 is existing.
So the total glazing area of the proposed then is 1,400 roughly?
1386.
Are you talking north
Are you
elevation
talking
or
south
south
elevation?
elevation?
I'm talking about the south.
So, yeah, that's it.
Yeah. So south today is 51.91
That's the existing condition right now,
and proposed is.
is 40.86. And then we were at closer to, yeah, 41.66. Previously. Right, so we raised the, that was the reduction. That was the reduction, yeah, in the bathrooms, which was a good. I'm glad we redid that. As I am with the landscape. Do we want to talk about the landscape at all, or do you guys?
I think the biggest issue will be to the previous applicant, how to be cognizant of the amount of glare. And that this is on the ocean.
We should look at the landscaping in addition to that. If glare is the concern, the code does say that we can, within reason, restrict the use of glass, including windows, but that's supposed to be germane to preventing trespassing light onto the right of way, unnecessary sky glow, unnecessary light pollution. So we shouldn't just look into a vacuum. If there's mitigating factors in the landscape, we can take that into account also. And I think that we should ascribe great weight to the fact that this is going to be less glass than this board has approved for the same dwelling in the past, if I'm taking that correctly.
That's correct.
By a fraction.
But we have still set that precedent for the same structure of having that amount of glass.
It was a different board though, in a different time.
Still the same board, and we still have privity with their decisions. So in the sake of not being arbitrary and capricious, I would urge us to be very cautious with that.
No, I think, what do you think about this again?
Oh, you guys are saying we're gonna do it.
The proposed glass in this particular application, what, emission?
The transmittance levels,
Right, yeah.
it's, I think, 71%.
69%. visual light placements on the glass itself, when you put in the IGU, it drops below that.
And is that proposed for both floors or is that?
That's screw up.
Okay.
Yeah, it would be one glass track. And frankly, we're open to like window covers, absolutely, but we were told that the board didn't accept that as like a additional solution to, light pollution issues. But a permanent like window covering solution.
Well, it looks like there's a nice intent with the landscaping.
Window covering solutions are a little problematic
I
from a legal
understand, I
standpoint.
understand why.
The purview of this board is really more exterior than interior, and what's to stop a subsequent transferee from
Sure.
ripping down all the shades?
Yeah,
I guess covenants and restrictions, which is a little bit much to ask.
I understand. And we have Charlie Marters from the landscape design team as well, here. And
Yeah, hi, Charles Martyr from Martyrs. Yeah, we've been adding trees throughout the project that help mitigate the appearance from the outside, from the pedestrian view lines on the water side. Next point, conifers, Japanese black pines and native willows on the north side, again to break up the elevations without naturally jeopardizing panoramic waterfront views or pond front views, but still be respectful to the everybody in the world that lives around or travels around or flies over.
And on the, Charlie, on the south, these are the black pond, the Japanese black pond?
Yes, yeah, which as you know, Jake, is a tough
Yeah.
go there for any sizable tree that hasn't grown there from seed. We'll try to get some sizable trees there too, so they're not just puny.
And what size do they get to in that?
Well, again, there's some along that strip that are 28, 30 feet. Provided you keep the, we're like an eagle thing, which is nice. We baited you.
And then flanking that, is that, what is that? Is that a willow that lies along,
We're talking on the north,
on the south?
oh, we have bayberry and more native type plant material
Mhm.
on the understory, on the again, well, start out with what we live there, we drive.
Mhm.
So it's like boxwoods or bayberry. We use both along with beach grass.
And is that a living roof on the east side?
it is, yeah.
And we try to pick up the colors, so on the north side, try to pick up the colors of the natural colors of things. As well as the blending with the house, just get sort of integration. As much as we can of blending man-made and natural.
I'm just so happy we get to use them, it's awesome. Like large conifers. Right, we didn't have that before and we were pushing for it. Now we have it.
Yeah, no, it really does break up the elevation compared to when we started. Because we started with like,
Guys, I like the landscape plan a lot. I like the trees, how it breaks it up. It's beautiful.
Do we have a landscape plan?
yes,
Sheet eight,
What page is that?
8.
the client has come a long way and now the situation is normally, it's like, nothing. The view.
What people don't understand is that when you frame the view and you bring it up, the experience is,
Right.
it should be on the video. Oh, you got it. Yeah, there's.
it makes it seem grander with all of the landscaping. It hugs.
And maybe more distant too, I mean, the house doesn't feel so omnipresent.
Right.
It really becomes fractured and layered and distant.
Yeah, and it softens the architecture, and that's one thing that we usually rely on it. So, like,
And Charlie, on the east and west, are those cedars or what are?
No, we're using junipers, tortuosus,
Mhm.
Hollywood junipers, because cedars will just get cut down and obliterated. No matter how much we wish they would live as a native.
I see.
So we're trying to use a faux native, which is kind of almost naturalized at this point.
Mhm.
The next 300 years will probably be native classification. After this board.
same word.
And then for the dune planting, that's native grasses?
Yeah, that's all beach grasses. A little bit, maybe I would try to talk about a few islands of Bayberry, just to kind of break up the beach grass a little bit, which will get mowed down naturally until probably 2 feet.
And the north side of the Fairfield Pond, is that, you can't touch that area?
We're into the wetland setback naturally, and so we're trying to adhere to wetland
Mhm.
plantless and natives. Upland natives will survive in the leeward of the house.
Mhm.
There's not much of it. It's not like Mecox or something where you get some
Right.
long, the pond doesn't give us too much of a exposure on that size. Other than-
Yeah.
Okay. I'm gonna go there.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Charlie.
Thank you.
Actually, raise one more point about the chimneys. There was a little discussion last time
Mhm.
on the repetition of the chimneys. If you look at page 10. We can make a minor change. The chimney in the middle that serves the fireplace, we can put that taller. And the two on either side are a little bit shorter, pulled down.
We reduced the chimney caps for the mechanical
Mhm.
Just like
ventilation, so that one is dominant relative to the
That's good.
And then we added on the last page, I don't know if it's germane to what you guys want to look at, but it is some references of this vocabulary that we've sort of incorporated or proposed for this project. And how the breaking of the roof line is, a device that we've successfully employed in the past.
And is there access to the roof?
There is access. The current house has a barbecue and bar and like some other things.
Yeah, it is a
out
pretty
there.
large roof deck. We are reducing it.
Yeah.
Significantly, but there's a small roof deck on the western portion of the.
And where do we see that?
Should be on the big plan, it's. I definitely saw it.
Yeah, plans are on here.
Yeah, it's page 31.
31. There you go. So it's the western piece that looks like thinking. Center west.
Page 18, you have a couple of lights mentioned there. Lower level lighting layout, and then exterior. Are there any floodlights that you're planning on?
No, we know that we're only allowed, we're only allowed exterior downlights, so we have like a very subtle. Exterior sconce, like a bronze hammered sconce that. Is modified for this project to only light downward.
Right.
And everything at 2700 Kelvin, so like everything very warm and sort of humid in light quality.
John, what is, when you have a FEMA raised structure, is there any variances, are there any allowances that, come into play with types of exterior? Like we have the floodlight limit,
Well, generally you would measure from grade, say 15 feet, the highest security light or 5 foot above finished floor for egress lights and stuff.
Okay.
But in this case, you usually measure from base flood elevation. It'd be fair to raise a house 15 feet in the air and say
Right,
that
and then
you
say-
got 15 feet in flood.
okay, thank you.
This deck is quite large, isn't it? If I'm reading the drawing right, page 31. The roof deck is quite large.
I guess
I mean,
it's relative, it was certainly larger before, and frankly, if it comes to it, I don't think the owners need. The request was to maintain.
So the roof deck existed already.
We did,
Yes.
and just to keep in mind, it's kind of sunken into the roof where the roof deck is. So the railing around that roof deck is only less than a foot higher than the roof of the
Right.
house.
So it reads as if there's a parapet, and then,
And have you taken away the wet bar and the barbecue and all that? So it's just.
all that part,
There's nothing up there other than furnishing.
yeah, there was fireplace, I think, to the existing.
Right, there was existing thing. That goes with.
Anything else? Make anything?
No.
Okay. So, yeah. That's not being turned up.
Sure. Why not?
Thank you for all the adjustments.
Thank you for your time.
Yeah, let's see.
Yeah. All right, let's entertain a motion then for approval. All right. Second,
Second.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your cooperation.
Thank you. It's always fun.
Oh,
interesting. I'll
be so happy.
You know, when the chief having
It's custom, it doesn't have.
It's not brand.
No. It's made by a gentleman named Scott Platt.
Can you just send me the details of the where I think the bird is live? Okay. See the corner.
Okay, you're concerned about the corner detail. We haven't fully resolved that, but
Just send me a text.
okay. Great, thank you.
I know. In the day.
Thank you.
Out.
Yeah.
Let's go holes. Thank you for your work on the things for us. And are we able to play that? Yeah. Thank you.
I think we go through the images, maybe. We go through that tape. Where we are. But the goal was just to get a perspective from the neighbors, what they would be seeing from their second story windows. Can we go through images that we have? This is just an overview. So if we look at here, this is from can't see the so I'll just walk over. So if we go back, this is where we're gonna have a solar array on this roof, and we're looking to see the perspective from these windows down here. We didn't want to get too far and encroach too far in the privacy of the neighbors, so where this drone shot is, you can actually go back just for one moment, please. You see where the windows are actually a little more in line with the hedges, the top of the hedges. Where we took the images, they were more above the windows. We had the roof line a little bit above the gutter line, so we weren't kind of approaching our privacy. We can see with the next shot that even at that level, we were at the window lines were probably more around here, maybe a foot or two above the hedges. So from this area, you really can't see the solar from those windows. And we get another perspective from our side. Keep going through. That's just a higher roof. So this is from the roof line where the solar is going to be. This is about halfway up the roof line. And you can't even see the house at all over those windows. So we're kind of happy with that. We weren't sure how it was actually panning out. And then we're going to look at this is from the north side, no, the southwest, southeast. There's a neighbor house behind here, and again, we're above the roof line, a little more visible from there, but when you're actually at the window level, you're not being able to see the house or the roof at all. That's just an above image.
What's your landscape?
It's easy.
Thank you.
We also wanted to touch upon the glare. So I mean, it is a goal of the solar manufacturers to absorb as much light as possible and not reflect light out. So having said that, the RAC panels that we are using not only have a layer of silicon nitride as an anti-reflectiveness on the glass itself, but also on individual cells. So it brings the transmittance of the glass between 96 and 98%, meaning only 2 to 4% of light would be escaping. And also, if there were to be glare, it would be at an angle of above 60%, which really only happens in the full winter months and at the mornings and nights. And that 60-degree mark is not really going to be reached given the window angles to the roof. And as suggested, we are installing the array skirt on the bottoms of the arrays, so you can't see the panels.
The percentage of the roofing that is going to have panels is what was it?
I don't have an exact percentage per roof.
I'm saying total roof, what percentage is in panels?
A lot.
Is it 85, something like that, or?
So probably 85% on the southern roof, probably each roof that has solar is gonna be around that 85%. But it's not every roof, so we have the garage roofs, just the dormers and these sides. And this roof here, and that roof here, and this roof here, which is more like 50%, 70, I'd say 70% solar. But the rest of the roofs, north side and driveway side, do not have any solar. Abide by all fire code pathways, things of that nature.
So which neighbor do you think would be the most exposed?
Which neighbor?
Yeah, south?
Probably from our perspective now, from here, but it didn't seem like anyone would be exposed.
How high is it known in this image?
This image, it's well above the roof height.
Do you have the lower?
So
image?
if we look at the video, where we started was the gutter line. So if we look at maybe higher, a little further past, we'll just wait till we get there. So kind of stop it like around, or right here, you can't even see, so we're like a little bit below the ridge here. And this is where the other neighbor is, that it's further away, but you can't see the house at all. I think there's another image coming from their property onto. So it would be from here, right there. So that, when that shot started, we were at the gutter line.
Any questions?
Nope.
Do you know the wattage that this is, just out of curiosity?
420 watts per panel,
420 per panel?
420 per panel, we have 84 panels, so we're 3.5 to 35.28 kilowatts.
I think, the presentation has, reduced our concern on, visibility of the array. That was my only initial hard concern on it. Are there any other questions from the board?
No, no more questions. I'm just thinking. It's a lot of salt.
It was 800, no, 80.
84 panels.
84.
Yeah. They have a sizable amount of usage, so it's doesn't even really cover 100% of what they're gonna be using.
Okay. Is there a motion for approval on this?
Yes.
Yes, second,
Second?
all those in favor? Aye.
Okay.
Very good.
Thank you.
Thanks
You
for your
guys.
follow-up, and the
Of course.
video was very helpful.
Thanks.
Alright, so as the board may or may not recall, this one, we had since the resolution. Giving our blessing to the ZBA for some variances.
Yeah.
And it's my understanding, you've obtained the variances from the ZBA are now back here.
We have, for the record, Val Florio, the architect for the applicant, the agent, I'm sorry, Wayne Bruin. Had submitted both applications for ZBA approval, so effectively, he is not here with us today, but, we've been before this board twice. It was July, last summer. Was a discussion before we went to the ZBA for their initial review. Following their first round of review for the project, asked us to come back here, which we did. To gain a sense of your thoughts in terms of the historic preservation of this home. House compound, if we will. To recap, although this has been on record as a discussion item, I'll just go very quickly. This is an addition to the principal dwelling. There are 5 accessory structures on the property. One of them is a pool equipment shed, which is to be removed. Of the 4 remaining structures, this is what we had asked our variance for, was to maintain these buildings on the property, but also to repurpose them. One structure to become a pool cabana. There's an existing accessory structure with a illegal use from the previous owner as a rental cottage that is to be rendered an office. And of the 2 remaining barn structures, one will be maintained as a 3-car garage, and the one to the furthest east, which we are reducing, has a playing court inside. It says we are proposing a recreation use, and that's pre-existing. Previous owner had rendered this barn as a splash pad court, so it is what it is. But the goal behind this project is really historic preservation, and the map is indicative of all these buildings to remain in place. Although they're difficult to see from the road, we want to keep the character of this compound. It's a very important property. It dates back to one of the original farm homesteads in the village. In terms of material, everything is in like and kind. In terms of the glazing, everything is less than what's considered an inappropriate amount. Actually, we have less glazing on the proposed than the existing structure has. And I think I've covered more or less everything, unless the board has questions, comments.
Any addition would have similar detailing on the shutters, or is that intentionally different?
It's not make the distinction. The color of the shutters is a forest green. There are 2 panel. And I don't want to make a clash. The distinction between the 2 buildings is done on purpose. As per Secretary of Interior guidelines, you can see on page 83. There's intended to be a forced parentheses between the existing and the proposed, so you can see clearly that anything
difference.
being added onto the structure does not confuse it. This is on the historic register. It's dated approximately 1910. And for those reasons, part of the addition, what's contributing to more or less a 50-50 split is that link which is between the two structures.
Right.
So in terms of scale, the Secretary of Interior has also asked for the subordination of the addition, and we've clearly wanted to do that. And furthermore, the addition is behind the primary structure. So as you see it from Sag Road, on page A1 of the cover sheet, you can see it's off in the distance. I've intentionally not shown planting for the reason that I feel it's a deceptive thing to do this to the board, where I could screen out that entire addition and say, look, you can't tell the difference. I purposely want you to see that addition behind it. Although it will be planted, the intention is to screen the driveway and create some privacy in the backyard. But none of the barn structures in the back are visible from Main Street.
Right, you just confirm the content of this, there's not really a light emission report on this, this is just,
There is,
there is.
in the large scale prints, gone through each window in terms of percentage of glass.
Right, but there's not a nighttime rendering, I guess what I'm asking.
Now, in terms of that, I have the dubious honor of being the one who came up with that formula. And I mentioned to the board at the time, because anyone can present a rendering to this board and alter the potential glow of a house in terms of illumination, which is where I came up with the square footage of the glass ratio to wall ratio, and to say that if it's exceeding 25%, which is considered, very much in line with a traditional structure, where a modern house might be in the range of 50 to 75% fenestration. So you can see in this rendering, or the top line drawing, each window has been calibrated in terms of percentage of glass. There's a small porch on the right side of that addition. It's a breakfast room, one story, but there's nothing in terms of glazing which would raise concern as far as a house with being lit up at nighttime. It's all bedroom space.
Having grown up next door to this, the skylights in the proposed three-door garage, I think those probably went in the 70s or so. I'm just curious, the intent is to keep them. Is that correct?
We've left it.
Okay.
We've left these structures as is for the most part.
Mhm.
Yeah. So there's been a reduction.
A lot's gone.
Yeah. Those are all
It was a
pre-existing.
machine shop and he was
Yeah.
trying to
Yeah.
cut back on.
I think, I don't want to speak for my clients who are here today. If it would be something that might please both them and the board, I could put on the record, possibly remove all of those.
I'm speaking about just the garage,
Right,
but there are skylights on the,
in the far eastern potato barn.
Right,
Yes. Yes,
the one that had the ball court, right?
yes, yeah,
That was built as a ball court, that was not a potato,
okay.
to my recollection.
We had, our attorney for the project did foil from the town, renovation to that barn. I don't know the date.
Yeah,
but,
Peter renovated.
yeah, so, but they are something which it's like putting a bumper sticker on a, Mercedes, if we don't have a comment that's someone might consider removal. I could ask my client if they like that, I could always come back to this board and seek approval to alter what's been submitted today.
And the small thing becomes the pool house, is that correct?
Correct.
And would that have, that doesn't have any styles?
No
Step further,
No.
that far and towards the street.
No.
Any other observations?
No, I think it's a good job, though.
Me too.
It's not easy to pull it all together.
I think it's beautifully done.
Do you wanna watch the video?
Sure, yeah.
Does it have any audio?
I've got no chance to accompany this, yeah. So again, it's void of any planting because I wanted to demonstrate the architecture. The. Yeah, it's something.
How big is the new proposed addition? I see the square footage at almost 7,000.
Total log GFA on this property is 7,200 and change.
Mhm.
Actually, total log is 7,444.
Mhm.
We're totaling at 6,989. The additions are that, the equivalent of the, existing structure, however, the link in between the two buildings, throws it over the tipping points, so it's about a 53 to 49 or so percent variation. But I've done my best to keep the height of the structure down. Entire second floor is encompassed with dormer, and that is up reducing mass and scale. So it's finally working.
And all this trim is existing white, right? It's like a, is it a dove white or is it?
Everything is a dove white as the board likes. It's nothing. There must be 40, 50 colors of white, and the preference is we go with a soft color, and dove white is the standard.
Mhm.
And the shingles are to match. Everything is perfections.
So, presently that 3-car garage has 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 skylights. Is that what you?
So the
Some of those will come off with the
That's
reduction
right.
in mass,
Yeah.
right? Okay, and then the big barn in the back, is,
Yeah.
16, is that correct?
I believe so. There's 8 on each roof line.
Okay.
Yeah.
But that's also being reduced, right?
Correct. If for any reason, as I said, if my client would wish to reduce that number further, I can come back before the board at some point.
Yeah, I don't see that illuminated very often, but it was lit up a couple of weeks ago.
It's a good amount of chimneys too. Is the flooring and all that existing detail?
Yes. The 2 chimneys off to the side, there's a large grouping of plants out feet to the north.
Mhm.
It's actually, I won't call it plantings, it's on par with a small forest, if you will, but those 2 chimney masses are external. Part of the reason also is with the external chimneys, not so much a space saver, but it's to demonstrate that this is not historic. You'd find most chimneys internal to the house as the primary source of heat, where clearly someone could say this building is not from the 1800s, it's got an external chimney. It's just one of the nuances. As I serve on the Ahrb board, we ask people, make your house distinct so that you don't confuse the history of the structure with something that's important As mentioned, this is on the landmark.
And are you presenting a landscape architecture plan?
No, the property is wide open. It's literally green acres. And in terms of foundation planting, there might be some decorative hydrangea around the foundation, but there's nothing new being introduced in terms of.
So it's just, it's as you're showing, you're just grass to house.
Yeah. No trees. If we had to, place anything on the property, it would obstruct the openness of it, so. It's part of the reason why we'd asked for a reduction of this central barn, which really encumbers the use of the property because it's such a big building.
But in the existing first page, it does show what looks like pivots and hydrangea, what you're saying, and random things. That's how it will remain.
Yes, and it's evident to my comment in terms of the screening. As you can see, that's off to the north, left side of the house, and the neighbor had no objection. Actually, we had support from every neighbor who was contacted that had responded, came back with a positive reaction. So
So no screening will be required.
no necessary screening, and the point being is that this house, which contributes to the village, is also in the historic district, will enjoy. Or I should say, the public will be able to enjoy this property from the road.
And the last question, the relocated barn in the existing, is that an existing setback? Is that why it's so close?
It's actually a decrease in the existing. It's literally shifting to the west in a straight line.
Mhm.
And the encroachment has improved by approximately 2 feet in terms of its relationship to that lot. But again, architecturally, we did that. This project involves a new pool, and as a benefit to the neighbor to the north, 5 days of the pool house being, or this pool abandoned barn moving where it's blocking sound. So it was a welcome feature. And it's again in the spirit of preservation, it's repurposing the structure on the property.
All right then.
Yeah, me too. It's beautiful.
Perfect. John, do we need any further plans or anything?
So you guys can make a decision, I don't believe so, the folks at structurals and all other kinds of stuff,
Yeah. Right, very good. Is there a motion to approve?
Yep.
All right. Second,
Second,
all those in favor? Aye.
aye.
Thank you, Lord.
Thank you, Mike.
Send our regards, Mr. Bruin.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yeah.
Okay, so we're up to the general application on 8160.
Good afternoon, members of the board, I'm Michael Lamont from Stella Montanelli Architects. I'm here with my associate John Whelan and Dan Thorpe from LaGuardia Design and Landscape Architects. We're here regarding Adam and Lauren Zipper, who recently purchased 81 Seascape, which is a flag lot halfway down Seascape, so on the east side with an existing dilapidated structure and pool. Adam and Lauren are longtime residents of Sagahonic. They spent many years here with family and decided to build themselves a new house. Overall, we want to be respectful of neighbors regarding privacy as well as a limited view corridor from Sag Road. I think that what I'd like to do is introduce Dan Thorpe, landscape architect, and we can discuss the site plan, screening and overall landscape plan. And I can follow up with issues on architecture, sizing, GFA, scale.
Thanks, Michael.
Hi, everybody.
Actually, you should do the demo first.
Oh, the demo first.
Take the demo.
Okay.
Please.
So as you can see, this is the existing house. I'm not sure of the exact time, but I assume that it's sort of in the early 80s, perhaps late 70s. It's very dilapidated, has been marginally used in the last couple of years. The pool is on the north side, closer to the neighbors. There's a fair amount of lawn throughout the property. It's very overgrown. We looked into if it was possible or logical to renovate the structure. We concluded there really wasn't anything there. The foundation, all the water damage, and the location of the structure. Like I said, the pool was on the north side, close to the neighbors.
Was there an architectural record?
Up for the original building?
Yes.
I don't know. We don't find any drawings.
Mark was prepared in 1988. Well, any question from that?
Yeah. It's kind of you to think about restoring.
I looked into it. There's just not much there. It was very poorly developed. Sure why, and the significant water damage throughout has been, like I said, used for the just glazing and hopefully for our purposes.
Oh, Purdue.
Yeah, was it, sorry. Pardon me. Warren Purdue one maybe?
Yeah. Yeah, he's had several around said.
And did we get the title search and all of the historic or lack thereof information on this one?
We don't have a mortgage lien search on this.
Right. I'm sorry, I'm John Whelan, I'm still on Valley Architects. I believe, Pat, I believe we do have the titles on the owner.
I have a note from the owners stating that they
Yeah, I believe.
retained advantage to perform a lien search
Mhm.
and asked Citibank to issue a letter consenting.
Right,
So let me just.
so I believe he may have gotten title documents and I can I can follow up with that this afternoon.
Because we can't approve the memo without. that on file. Is my understanding.
Let me think. What we need is a current title search showing the name of any mortgagee or holder of a similar interest with the lien on the premises. And consent to the original executed form authorizing any such demolition.
Right, I think, I don't know if Adam is on the Zoom call, but I don't know, I should stand up, but there's an issue that he's working on with the bank. To resolve this. To resolve this because currently, first of all, he has no intention of demolishing the house or attempting to do any of that until we have a building permit.
Well, you won't
So-
get it without it.
Yeah, certainly, so we're hoping we could, while the banking stuff gets worked out, we're hoping that we can move along the process. Understanding that no building permit will be issued and no demolition permit will be issued till this is resolved, but currently the bank has an issue about demolishing the house without having a contract, so it's like a catch-22, without having a contract to build a new house. As evidence, they don't wanna just, release it to be demolished, not having that, and therefore we can't, we can't get that until we go through the process with this board. And once we have an approval from this board, we would further the building permit documents, the structural and the detailing, so that we can get an actual contractor to come and give prices and then come back and offer a contract that could go to the bank so that they would be okay with the demolishing of the house. So that's kind of the jeopardy we're in here.
Okay.
He does have, I believe, and again, I can probably get that to you tomorrow, Pat. He does have some title documents that came in recently, since we filed this with you, so I will follow up on that, but
The only thing I
That's the
have from the title company.
is that letter, no, he's gotten something since, though, I believe.
And then, yeah, this is, I mean, the board could give a consensus, but not approve.
Yeah, I wonder.
I was just telling you, it's way before, yeah.
So what I would suggest for the board, and having been on the other side of this and trying to obtain bank consents myself, sometimes it is quite a long process. What I would suggest to the board is let's work with the applicant to get as much done for them now as possible and to do as much review and feedback of the architecture design. So that at least if and when they get their approvals from the bank or the mortgagee, whatever it may be, then they'll at least have
Yeah, that would be.
have gone through the process already to the biggest extent that we can do. And have some direction going forward, at least make things a little more expedient.
We would appreciate that, and obviously any, again, whether it's a download and approval with the condition that no permits are granted until these banking issues have been resolved, but I wonder, board members, has this come up? I'm surprised this doesn't come up more often, because for just the reasons I stated, and the bank is feeling.
How could I recall? We don't. We had a policy that we were not to grant a demo unless we had a clear title.
Right.
That was.
Right.
Usually don't even hear it though until you
Yeah.
have.
Correct, yeah.
Our previous attorney would allow us to actually listen to your presentation. But it seems like now we're able.
No, I see no detriment in us just listening to the presentation as long as we're not changing the security interest of the mortgagee, just by listening to hypothetical new plans.
Go ahead.
Okay.
Apparently some lenders are pretty forthcoming with a letter of consent. And other lenders, apparently Citibank, will not budge from actually, so they said they actually need the contract with the contractor price.
For whatever it's worth, I've been on the other end of that as well, and I've tried to achieve mortgagees' consents, and with some banks, it's a very straightforward process, with some banks, it can be arduous, so.
So our client has gone to a different lender, it's in the process, it's just about finished with that, he's actually kind of a different lender, we'll provide a letter.
But at this point, I don't think you'll find an issue with our approval for the demo when it comes up.
Great.
Right.
Okay, great. Thank you, thank you.
So would you like to also hear, I see no detriment if you wanted to hear the new.
I think it's a discussion, yeah,
Yeah, we can do it as discussion item.
that works for you guys?
Sure. I think we can.
So that way the applicant will have the benefit of at least the first round of.
It just changes from being an application to a discussion. You want me?
Might take.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're comments.
Hi, good afternoon, Dan Thorpe, landscape architect from the Gloria Design Group for the applicant. We figured we'd lead into this with more of a discussion about the site and the existing kind of issues of the existing vegetation, site setbacks, and look at it from kind of an outside-in approach. And then as we get closer to the house, then Mike will come up and actually speak to you about the design of the proposed building. I also have some additional renderings to submit to the board. We did do this formally with Pat, but these are just a couple additional renderings showing our landscape more accurately portrayed around.
Just so the board knows, I had these in Google Drive last week for review.
And so the way the presentation is set up in this booklet is we're gonna walk you through the existing site, the existing surrounding context and neighboring properties that are adjacent to the project. And then kind of our approach to preserving as much of the existing site as possible. And our proposal for the landscape around the building. And then Mike will step up and explain the architecture. So the site.
There's many FEMA issues. You're.
Exactly.
I'm gonna start with that, yeah. Yeah, so the building envelope itself is zone X, so there's no FEMA requirements for raising the building, which kind of sets it apart from other buildings on Seascape where you're in the limit of moderate wave action. And the buildings, the newer construction is raised. So this is more or less a grade. The existing site, 81 Seascape, is about halfway down Seascape Lane. It's down a long flagpole. The house itself is about 330 feet from Seascape Lane, so it is kind of a long drive up a flagpole to the lot, which is against then the existing ag reserve, which then runs about 1,000 feet out to Saguenay. So here's the proposed site on the screen. In the middle is the proposed building. That more or less is proposed in the same position as the existing residence. As I said, it's the building's proposed more or less at grade. It doesn't need to be raised up. And then in red around the site are where we're showing existing versus proposed surrounding vegetative screening measures. So if we can flip through these, oh, and this is our lighting plan, which is very minimal, dark skies compliant, just downward facing path light fixtures around the building, along pathways and steps, and more or less just safety wayfinding. So here is this is a good bird's eye view, kind of top down, just explaining the existing vegetation around the property. It's one of the few properties on Seascape that have really dense coniferous evergreen foliage around the property on at least 3 sides. So you can see the density of that. Some of the darker green foliage. So the idea is we went out to the site and we mapped the existing trees. It's a lot of existing cryptomeria, which are these towering, really salt tolerant evergreens. There's a lot of existing, like really impressive cedar trees that we're either going to work around or transplant and make part of the new construction. There's right like in the middle of the screen there in the foreground of the White House, is an existing poplar tree that's quite nice that we've kind of maneuvered the proposed pool around to keep it. There's some apple trees we're working around. So instead of going in with a kind of a more brazen approach of just kind of raising the site to build the house, we're really trying to kind of shoehorn the site, the proposed construction within the existing vegetation. So this is a view from Sag, Maine. You can see the ag fence in the foreground. Our site is up in the northwestern corner where about a third of the site actually slides behind the hedge off to the right. So it's a more limited view of the proposed house than some of the other properties that have been developed further down the seascape. Yeah, zoom in. So this is like I said, about 1,000 feet from the proposed house. There's existing vegetation to the left of the proposed house, which is going to be maintained. There are some existing trees between the farm field and the house that we're going to maintain. And then to the right of the house, you can see those like larger evergreen trees. Those are existing now. Well, keep going. The next slide. Thank you. So now we can go more immediately around the proposed sites. The way these slides work is there's an existing condition, which is a current photo of the neighboring view sheds, and then the next slide will be the proposed. So we're keeping the existing arborvitae, the existing cedar trees, and we're simply infilling with like species to fill in the gaps and hide the house best we can. Here's a view from the neighbor to the north, and then there's the proposed house. Again, it's at grade. It's a flat roof, 2-story building, so not so difficult to screen. And this is neighbor north, and then this is from the neighbors like to the east. Had existing tennis court area. You can see that big existing cryptomeria, which we're working around. And then we're gonna actually transplant. There's a lot of like big, healthy clumps of privet on the site that we're gonna move around and kind of use for perimeter screening. This is a proposed rendering of the building with the landscape integrated around it. Thankfully, this is a client who fortunately does not need a lot of lawn around their house, so we're taking that as an opportunity to introduce a lot of native indigenous meadows around the house. Less fertilized, less irrigated, less toxic landscape. So our plan is really to preserve the existing trees and then supplement with a lot of native species, indigenous kind of self-sustaining meadows. And most of the lawn that we are proposing are really just walkway paths, and then south of the house there's like a small little play lawn. But we are vegetating between the farm field and the house with meadows and small trees, and the idea is to kind of draw in the surrounding landscape rather than just push it away with mowed lawn and pricked hedges. So that's the landscape, and then Michael is going to talk about the house being that.
Okay, so like we said, we're in an X zone. We actually, the line comes through the site, so we decided to move the house into the X zone. So we could have flood regulations and get off of the lower part of the site. It also allows us to do a crawl space down here with about 4 feet or so of headroom, and some ducts and some mechanical equipment down there. So so this is the ground floor plan. We decided to attach the garage to the structure, to try and keep everything as compact as possible. So the ground floor is keeping it compact, but also being aware of scale and trying to keep the scale of the house, down, and so it reads smaller massing, simple volumes. relatively open plan on the second floor with a master bedroom on the deck. Clients are very sensitive to the sun, so we tried to, we actually reduced the area. We're allowed 6,087 square feet on the GFA, but we were able to sort of persuade our clients to reduce the overall size of the house, to incorporate some overhangs, reduce the scale, give us some places out of the sun, incorporate the allowable pergola. So our garage mechanical on the first floor is 546 square feet. So the total habitable is 2817. And if you add the two of them together minus the garage, it's 5,028 square feet. With the garage, it bumps it up to 5574 square feet. And then the rest, the remaining about 600 square feet, we used for overhangs, covered porches, basically place out of the sun. We have about 12 kilowatts or so of power on the roof. The panels will be flat, be a small planted area up there as well. 700 square feet roof deck up there. We reduced the height of the building so that main handrails are below maximum height. So the building, the actual roof deck actually lowers the actually scale and the height of the building. Shows the section crawl space. We have 9-foot ceiling heights plus an area in the living room that pops up. The elevations, we try to keep things, the volumes pretty simple and the overall architecture pretty simple. It's going to be clad in a weathered FSC certified Sapelli, a rain screen, which we feel sort of reduces the overall scale of the building. And there's not a lot of rounded windows. It's either solid or void. So these diagrams, I think, are pretty straightforward. They just show GFA compliance with areas where we have overhangs, areas that's habitable space, area that's still included in the GFA, but not necessarily habitable space, exterior storage, garage, and some mechanical space. So we can talk about glazing. So the glazing diagrams, I think once we get to the overall architecture renderings, maybe we come to go to the renderings and we can kind of come back to the glazing diagrams. Because I think if you want to go forward. So these renderings show the first few, we have some nighttime renderings, and this one shows basically the rendering from standing on the edge of Sag Main. Like I said, our building is lower, the grade is lower, the FEMA line is lower, so there's no credit having to elevate the building, so our building is much lower than a lot of buildings going further south down Seascape. That's a view from the driveway. Certainly located the building and tried to have the areas being respectful of neighbors, aware of the areas of glass that faces neighbors. Like I said, we moved the pool from, which was close to the neighbor on the north side, we moved it to the back. There's no downlights on the building. Like I said, all of the exterior materials is a weathered wood rain screen and weathered rain screen fascias, dark glazing itself. And this came up in a recent project. We're going to be using Solar Band 72, which has a visible light transmittance of 68. So a 32% reduction of clear glass, and it's a low reflectivity glass. So some of the daytime renderings, like I said, we try to keep the architecture pretty simple, just not trying to make a big statement, a lot of ins and outs. So, but we still by reducing the mass and scale, basically panels of just weathered green screen wood, and there's also a vertical screen that's just to the right, which we think is looking back from Sag Main, which is going to help screen some of the deck and some of the glass from Sag Main. So this is a view from the east side, which is the entry side. So we have a small sort of parking area that's tucked behind the hedge, and there's an entry garden and an overhang that's on the right side of that. I guess if you want to go back, go back to the few pages to the glazing analysis. That's the first one. So looking at the different elevations, we have the east side. Well, we've done a calculation there. We have, like I said, the building itself is, by not having the FEMA elevate, let's say, so some buildings down the road are elevated 5 and 6 feet above grade, and then you get the credit for the height. We actually have less height, so because we're so much lower, so we don't have all of that extra siding that's around the base that's a lot of the adjacent houses have. But regardless, we've done the analysis on the east elevation. We came up with 42% glazing. There's, if we went up, because we were debating whether we go up with a pitched roof, if we went up with a pitched roof to the maximum building height, that glazing percentage would be reduced to 34% of the overall mass of the building. I know that's not something that's in the code, but we just thought it was just something to consider. The south elevation, we have a glazing percentage of 38.9 square feet. And it would be 38 feet if we had a gable on that side. The west elevation, 32.5 square feet. Said it would be 27 if we had a pitched roof.
Percent, like percent.
Percent, sorry, yeah. And then finally, the north elevation is at the bottom, 22% as the glaze versus facade. So I think the next just go to the next page, because I think that rendering, zoom in a little bit there, that you can sort of see it a little more clearly. I think that, we went out, the view is from standing on Sag Main, which we thought was important. Dan said it's tucked away in sort of the corner, so when you're coming down Sag Road, you have that large cripping area and all the landscaping. That's between 81 and the neighbor to the north. There's a tennis court to the neighbor to the north, so 81 has a significant amount of landscaping. So when you come down Sag Road, you actually don't see the house until you get around that landscaping. And then when you get further down Sag Road, you can see the clump of vegetation that's basically evergreen vegetation that's to the left side of that. And then the house goes behind that as you go further down Sag Road. I think that's all I have. If you have any questions, I'm happy to.
Michael, some of the siding, is that stucco?
Yeah. The
Seemed like it was
yeah, it's actually
light material.
so all of the fascias and all the siding is going to be rain screen Sapelli. And then on the east side, we have the stone, the basically we're using this, still not clear, but we're looking at the gray limestone. That would sort of fold in, that's basically the same as the patio. So there's a wall that folds in from the entry that comes out. So the only area that's a different material, like I said, is go back to the other rendering, you see it on the east side. Door. Actually, you can sort of see it there. It's that area that's to the left of the lower rendering. And we use that basically. We pulled in. It's basically it's a mechanical volume inside, but it screens it basically kind of fold the material that's on the ground, the papers on the ground folds up into that one little alcove, and then it screens the entry. We wanted this entry garden coming as you park. The guest parking is front, and you walk through this grove of trees and meadow. And that volume actually screens the cars if there's cars parked in front of the garage door to the left side.
It's a thoughtful presentation, thank you.
Thanks, appreciate that.
Do you think this is relatively? The interior ceiling color is white.
It's gonna be wood. It's gonna be the same sort of a neutral, like wood.
Throughout the whole upstairs and downstairs.
And at present, are you considering any emission plans, light emission plans? Light emission plans?
They mentioned solar.
Yeah, so we're proposing that it's gonna be impact rated glazing system, which is certainly our preference, and it's a solar band 72. And that has a visible light transmittance of 68, so 32% less than clear glass, and it's also low reflectivity.
Any comments on the glazing percentages?
Yeah, can we just look at that, the elevation, I think it was the use, that's 42%. It was near the end of the glazing diagram.
Oh, maybe.
Down
Yeah, the east is not open.
So this is the elevation looking out over the backyard over the ag reserve. And there are the glazing on the, what we're not showing is the glazing at the ground level has a roof, actually, as well as the glazing at the upper level. So there's a pergola that's actually on the also on that side. So we feel like there's no uplight from the surface lights, that while that is an accurate diagram of the percentage of glazing, we feel that the roofs are going to contain a lot of that light transmittance in both of those areas. That's the main outdoor living space for both the ground floor for the pool and everything above.
Could you switch to the rendering so we can understand?
It's no, I don't think they've done this, so it's
That's not that.
east and south from the upper.
There you go. That's it.
I see, you're saying it's setback and then there's range between.
So we have a set of stairs coming down from the upper level to the pool, so we put that behind a louvered, basically a louvered rain screen that turns into a louvered wall above. And that's, so it's a barbecue on the deck, Chris, that screens the barbecue as well. And then there's a minimal overhang on the ground level, and then we use most of our overhang on the upper level. And still using, the overhang allowances, and then where we're limited to 18 inches, or whether it's further using our GFA, very judicious on where we were able to use as much overhang versus the GFA to keep the house to sort of meet the client's program.
These two that I'm looking at right here, is this the same?
Yeah, it's the
Yes.
same, the one on top just has our landscape rendered in around it.
But this looks like it has an overhang, even if there's not an overhang on this. I'm just making sure I'm looking at it the same.
Actually, the Dan's office did this rendering for more for the landscape, but the architecture is over here, actually, because we had to remove that roof over there because that's GFA.
Okay, so this
There
is,
was a little piece of roof there.
this is what it is supposed to look like.
Yeah, the architecture rendering, so
Okay.
actually, he was just showing the driveway.
Gotcha.
Actually, we wanted that, an overhang there, we ran out of GFA there, we had to move that.
No, I like that.
Michael, do you think the owner might consider a slight reduction on the east second floor?
I can certainly talk to him about that. Look at that.
It's just a bit high percentage.
We thought the percentage was, on the higher side, but I think also that the fact of the building being so much lower, and if we had, like I said, if we have the neighbors are 6 feet off the ground because they have to be 6 feet and then they get the height credit. So then they have that 6 feet of building to offset their glazing. So actually, we feel our glazing is actually significantly less by being at ground, because we don't have the credit from FEMA. And that, you know, that's good and bad, because we're getting higher, everybody wants to be higher, but we like the building kind of tucked in there, but it is sort of held against us being so low.
I think that's my only, ask is to see if it. Consider that.
To see what, I didn't hear what you said.
Just to, that seems to be, as Mike was saying, it's a good application, they're lower and less large than they need to be, and the materials are very restrained and covering, but it's still a high percentage on that one elevation. So I think that would be my only ask.
It's very serene.
Try to keep it pretty quiet, so to not have a lot of ins and outs, because we think that the, and by working with landscape architects, the idea was to really get rid of, there's less lawn there in the proposed scheme than there is existing. So really trying to keep this sort of native habitat and have kind of a quiet house that sort of sits amongst that, more of a restored meadow type.
The roof, opposite the roof deck on the other side of the chimney. It's referred to as PV panels. Is that light emitting or is it?
No, those will be photovoltaic panels, but they'll be flat, so solar panels.
And so that's all on that roof, is that correct?
Yes, so they won't be visible at all.
Mhm.
And we wanted to get, like I said, I think we have about 14 kilowatts or so of power up there.
Right.
I think the house, you know, as we try to do most of our structures, we're really trying to be as energy efficient as possible in terms of glass insulation, solar panels.
Okay,
Michael, I guess the question is on the second floor, it looks like there's a,
to the glass living?
it's like a double high space, is that what you're denoting there with the X?
The, there's a clear story, so we pulled the height of the roof down in the living room, but there's a clear story that goes around. Just not the living room piece, yes. And that's in the calculations.
But there's a set of skylights, those are solar.
On the flat, yes.
So he's just saying that it's higher, and there's
Mhm.
those thin clear story lights.
But this is not a glass roof.
No, it's a solar.
It's a long pole. Long thing. It's pretty, I'm just curious.
Okay,
51 feet.
any other comment?
No.
And you'll let us know about the east facing.
Okay, so certainly think that.
Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Any other questions from you as to?
No,
what
we'll come
we're-
back, we have another our clients working on the bank, right, the different banks, we should be able to get all that. As soon as possible.
Yeah, if you get the sample of the stone.
In the structure, okay, we'll bring that in the sides.
And if and when you get documents of any sort from the bank, you're not gonna wait for the next meeting to submit them because my office has to review them. So feel free to forward them to ASAP, obviously.
Great.
Nice design.
Thank you guys, appreciate it, thank you all.
We're gonna need to do two motions, one for the demo, one for. We're looking for,
Turning to then what?
Aye.
Second. All in favor, aye. And I'm turning for 81 seascape new construction. Motions? And second,
Second.
all in favor, aye. 39 Sack Road.
That's actually,
That's.
it's the one he gave, I'm sure.
So maybe I can start just a little background presentation. It said Jeremy Morton was going to present, but he was in Africa, or he and his wife are building a school and they got stuck. So he's with us on Zoom, but we think it might be better if me and the architect try to do it live instead of having him come to call.
Just need to your names out.
Yes. Call Hampus Tofte. No, Hampus Tofte.
And my name is Matt Bittner.
So, I don't know how these things work. Jeremy does, but a little background, maybe. We bought this property pretty much exactly a year ago. And that time we've spent on trying to design our dream house and where we're gonna live. My wife and I was here. And we engaged an old friend of ours here, Matt Bittner, as our architect. And I think Matt, I don't know if he should go through a little bit about the designs. Maybe I'm sure you're gonna ask questions. If you want him to lead and start explaining thought process, or how do you want to do it? We were hoping to look to the previous applicant to see how they did. It was nothing but discussion instead, so.
Right.
You let us know how you want to.
Well, let's go through what your ideas are, and then we can comment.
Sure.
on-
I can start with just the general and give the design aspect. So the reason why we bought this was actually because what we wanted to create was a lot of space, open space for our children, but also privacy. And we did not want a giant house, which was hard to combine those two things here, because if you find a big cleared lot, it usually has a very big house already. So that's why we felt that we had to build our own house, where we are now building a house that is significantly smaller than the allowable GFA. And where we're gonna have to create our own privacy, so we're not burdened in that sense by existing vegetation, but we can create it exactly how and where we want it. That's also why the building is L-shaped, to create a little more privacy around the pool area and the deck, to not have people sort of look in where you are as a family. So that's the background of the project. And I think the design thoughts, there have been many since it's been a year. But this is where we have arrived now, and obviously trying to fit into the neighborhood. We drive on Sag Road and Sag Main all the time, up and down. Our kids go to school in Sag Corner School, and we see all these houses. And we have arrived at the yellow Alaskan cedar almost all through, because we think that fits in and goes between most of these houses in the areas. And then Matt, as an architect, obviously has pushed us further. There's been a little back and forth on that. We want traditional, but we wanted to sort of look a little bit of today as well, not just sort of. So with that, maybe I'll leave it to you, and then Jeremy can chime in. He's in here somewhere in the Zoom.
You tried to
I'm
draw.
here.
Thank you.
Please put your camera on, Jeremy, if you're gonna participate. Thank you.
Great.
We drew from the vernacular architecture, both in a material sense and the building being two gables combined, an L-shaped rather than one large structure, connected by a glassed-in breezeway, which the glassed-in breezeway houses the entry and the dining room, which then spills out into the patio. And a lot of the expressions of the project do have traditional elements of architecture, but we also try to express symmetry on the sort of wing that has the two fireplaces coming out the top that are symmetrical. That is more the social wing, where it has the dining room, living room, kitchen, and den. And then the other wing that's double hit here is actually more the private wing, where it has its bedrooms and offices and garage as well. And yeah, it's our intention to try to keep the architecture quiet with a combination of gray limestone and Alaskan yellow cedar. And the Alaskan yellow shaped shingles will be on the roof and on the siding. And we will use the complementary cedar
for the things like the trellis and some of the those throughout as well. We rendered the project both in the summer and the winter, just so that you could get an idea of what it is, you know, without vegetation. So you could really read into the architecture and not so much the vegetation. That's what we, you know, you're reviewing here. We're really interested in traditional proportions, but modern design within traditional proportions. And I think that's all we have to say. If you have any questions,
as you know, the house next door to the south, the original house is 1740. And we do have to take into consideration the Department of Interior guidelines with that. And so perhaps this much stonework is a little bit aggressive for the relationship between the neighboring structure. Also some consideration to the very tall windows and so forth like that. I think there's like a light panel somewhere in here, it's almost like
there's a light
stories.
diagram towards the end of this position. So
Which one should this far is this within the historic district, this property?
It is not, but it's right next door.
Next door doesn't bring in the National Register automatically,
Right,
but we can't apply, the National Register standards are for the historic property itself. They don't necessarily apply to surrounding.
we were trained that we have to have some sensitivity to.
Sensitivity, yes, but to go, I would just shy away from using the National Register as the benchmark, but proceed.
There is one thin window that's quite tall. Where is that? Is that on the back of the?
it's on the south side, actually.
Okay. So it would be facing the historic house, is that correct?
Yeah, we kept the percentage of open on the facades to somewhere between 15 and 22%, and a blended average of 19%.
And these windows along the street?
Those are, it's an 8-foot window with an 8-inch transom, so it's a total of 9.6. And it's 2 3-foot doors, 6 feet.
Yeah, I think it's important to note that the window in reference that is facing the historical piece to the south is the stone facade is only 3 foot wide. We had an original design that had significantly more windows, and sort of after a pretty extensive review of things that had happened in the past with the board and what they had specifically been looking for, we drastically reduced the amount of glass, specifically with this particular orientation to the south in mind, drastically reducing this particular window and others that were emitting any sort of light. And the idea to, starting out approximately, in the mid 20s in terms of percentile of what the actual wall space was allocated towards windows, and arriving now towards this 19%, we feel like we were able to really pare down our original intent and really keep the design intent with really thoughtfully being able to drastically reduce the amount of glass on the structure.
Maybe it should be noted, we don't have the landscaping lined out here because we want to see the architecture and show the architecture, but as you probably know, if you know this lot to the north, the neighbor there has already a pretty thick wall of trees and bushes blocking the view. To the south, there is the barn, the old barn structure that you mentioned, that also blocks from the principal building to ours. And the only neighbor that today doesn't have that screening is the Wilfords to the east, who sold us the lot. But it's about 500 feet between our house and their house, and that's where we will definitely screen, both for their sake and our sake.
And it's also up the hill.
And it's also up the hill, exactly. We're actually much further down than they are.
Is there a concept by which you came up with the driveway going across the entire front of the house?
Just it's a way to approach the house and to be able to get to see the house and not just to drive to the garage and and just enter into the garage as a guest. And it was also a way to preserve the line of trees that's along the front of the lot. So you kind of drive in between the tree or on the right side of the trees, and then you have.
I know that was a.
Mr. Woodsman, do we need parking necessarily at the side yard, or could parking be in the front over here?
No, parking cannot be the required front or the required side. It's still something that they're working out on the survey. They have a compliant plan shown to me, but the latest plan moved their parking into an area that would be in the front yard, so they're still currently working.
And we created these renderings before we had taken those factors into consideration. I spoke with John directly about it, about the proper parking allocations of where they should go. We're currently in the process of doing that. These were created before handing that in, but we didn't think we would have to change the renderings for the architecture review board, thinking that we'd just be looking at the materials and the style of the home. But certainly it is our intent to make a conforming parking structure.
Maybe it should be mentioned too that the closest neighbor is in the north, and I think that's about 120 feet. But in the north is also where we have very few windows. I think it's 9% or something like that. And towards the street, there are no second floor windows at all, except for the children's room that you can see to the left. That's the only second floor window facing west of the street.
So the total window on the garage, that's actually a window seeing into the garage, is that correct?
Yes. That's the real, yeah. Behind vegetation, it's not to show the garage, it's more to have some natural light.
I think it's a nice application.
Thanks so much.
I just wonder about the stone, is it's, there is no natural stone. So we just have glacial erratic, so that would be my only, if there was nothing stored, if it was set back, it would be another matter, and it's a beautiful stone, it's just not from here. And I wonder if there's another idea, another kind of wood or stone that you were considering?
Yeah, we tried to clad the long sides of the building in wood and then the short sides of the building in stone, so it could get an accent from different angles. So you're not getting, you're still getting obviously a lot of stone, but you're not getting all the stone at once. You get it at from different perspectives. And there are other applications that have been included with I understand the stone is not of.
It's all about where these buildings are and if they're applicable to the public's view and how close they are to the public view. We have applications that are, quarter mile away from the road, just because it's near the Southern Historic, it becomes another matter. And it's a beautiful stone, it's just question mark. If the wood clapboard or some other interesting wood might be might have been thought of.
I think it's important to note that in the decision-making process and thought process on selecting this particular stone, when the sort of embryo of the ideas for this particular property were coming about, we were looking at a significant amount of materials and basically selecting them based off of things that had been discussed in the past on this particular panel. I think we were unaware of the historical relevance for this particular property. And I think, as mentioned, that we are not in a historic district, but adjacent to it. So we didn't really take that into effect, and we were trying to use materials that had been previously approved by this particular board. And I think we painstakingly went through a significant amount of items because this architect and this homeowner are very diligent in the way that they design and very thoughtful in the way that they design. But two, they wanted to make sure that everything they were selecting would be befitting of this particular Ahrb board, and sort of a tip of the hat to things that had been, discussed on this particular board beforehand. So if there is a historical piece to it, that was something that we had thought we had vetted out and thought that we were outside of that particular district.
Just to give kind of a brief overview, I know the code can be a little confusing here. The Secretary of Interior Standards deals with properties that are historic or within the historic district itself. That's not the case with this particular property, but looking at a more high level, we can look as to striking dissimilarity of one structure with the nearby structures. So that does kind of bring things into our purview there. Visual discord is another phrase which is used within the code. So that's kind of our parameters that we need to look into. As to stone, I don't know if it's splitting hairs here. Stone isn't technically endemic to Long Island, but I know in parts of Sag Harbor and East Hampton, ballast stone from ships was used. Field stone was brought over from parts of New England. So those are things that we can also keep into account.
We try to select a stone that as soon as the cedar weathers, it sort of has a similar characteristic as far as the colorway and the texture.
And I think from our perspective as owners is we want to break up with something, because it is very traditional now. And this way we could do it was to have some different structure, some different material. And we never had any other material that would achieve that without sticking out. And here at least we can achieve it with the same color scheme. That's how we arrived at it after a lot of discussions.
I think it would be nice to see just something different. If you would look into some other type of stone or something, just so that we have an idea. I mean, I think it's beautiful. It's refreshing to see something that's not gigantic and it's modest, and I love it, but it would be nice to see something else.
Another stone, is it the choice of stone?
Something that's more keeping with with Sagaponic, something that's sort of, that blends with the environment of the village.
But it seemed like stone was not.
It rarely has been approved, especially in significant portions like this.
It's usually brought down quite a bit, and it all depends again on how the public is viewed.
Yeah.
So because you have this other structure, we have to be more critical.
But just as I'm coming back with a different stone would not change that. It would.
I don't think so.
So in doing the research for the project, are the other, I think I had 9 homes that we had that had recently passed the board that we were using as sort of a guideline. Would it be that those were approved with this particular type or similar stone, that those were just outside of or farther away from this particular district, the historical district?
Every application is different. I think you have to go on a case by case. But we also only have 3 board members here. If you'd like to come back and represent it, we have a second. That's up to you.
I don't have the specific address, but here's a precedent image of another project that has a stone end cap. This is in Sagaponic. I don't have the specific address because it's private. I'm sorry. So it's stone end caps and then stone columns here at the end.
I'm sure that was quite a bit larger site though, that's shielded by screening.
Okay.
Is there, what are the landscaping situation, landscaping proposed on the Sag Road side?
No, we were presenting architecture today for the architecture review board, so we don't have the landscaping proposed specifically because we didn't want to shield any of the of the architecture.
But it should be noted that the plan is the only vegetation there is today is on that side.
Yeah.
Those are the trees there, and we will
And
create
the,
we don't have any visual. If we could log all the visual into our property, we would.
Right.
And that's what we're gonna try to do.
We're planning on this area to be a large planted area, as we're alluding to, very, not specific.
It'd be great to see that.
And then
You're ready
along
to
the
show it.
frontier to also provide vegetation here as well. So there will be screening because they would like privacy as well. We just didn't want to show anything that wasn't part of the architecture today.
What happens is that there's a precedent of applicants often showing things that don't get done, that aren't completed. So part of our process is to see the entire package, landscaping and architecture together as one piece. But I don't think anyone on the board has issues with the architecture other than the material. Mike, is that correct?
I don't know about the 9-foot windows. 9 to 6, actually. The transom is how much?
It's 18 inches.
18 inches.
The idea
What's
is
the
that
base, what's the distance of the base? Because there's also a box at the bottom, right?
you can hear.
Yes, no, the bottom of the window, there's
Oh,
a
here?
square door, yeah. what's
Oh,
that?
so this is 3 feet, this is 5 feet, this is 18 inches. It's the proportion.
Within certain dimensions of what you're working with, those become kind of loud and much more modern than what we're used to. I mean, your 3 other neighbors, the Wilfords, the Frenches next door to the north, are all relatively within that area. Shoji kind of went off, but he also has a fair amount of coverage. Where you're not exposed to that. He's kind of going crazy with exterior lighting too, which is something that we can follow up with, I think. But even with this in your night illuminations, you've got a lot of downlighting on your siding, and that's not really something that we're looking for, is making the house pop at night, kind of a thing. And then what appears to be the same curtain between the garage and the other, the second story. I'm wondering whether that needs to be quite so present. I understand the garage isn't going to be lit all the time, but again, large panels of glass emit a tremendous amount upon some occurrences. So
That's why we kept the percentage of the glass down so significantly on the facade in order to not emit. And we try to keep, I understand that 9'6" is tall, but it is a classical proportion. So we were trying to do a more traditional house, keep the ceiling heights below 10 feet, and yet to get a transom.
just for frame of reference as well, in the 22 homes I've built in just the Hamptons area from Southampton to Montauk, this is the lowest glass ratio to side. So I mean, getting down to that 19% was significantly low, and we weren't considering the height. We were thinking of emission as total square footage of glass as we were designing, which I think is I think a quite logical way in which to go about it. As if something's slightly taller, you're still, I mean, the more square foot you have of glass, the more light will be emitted. Not necessarily the shape and size of each particular window. But that was definitely part of the thought process.
In the very end of the package, there's that picture that has like an extended driveway past and traveling out.
It was a rendering.
Oh, okay.
That's it. That is not the
Sorry,
framework,
yeah.
it was for the house. It's not-
Okay. It was just kind of a.
Sorry, if you look at the site plan, it's not showing that
That was what
I was equally confused when I saw
Yeah.
it.
okay.
Circular driveway around the whole house.
Yes, exactly. The race course.
Give the kids a racetrack.
Maybe they did.
Yeah, just asking my colleagues about the driveway in the front. We recently had an application elsewhere in the village bordering the historic district, and it was just not something that passed. I don't know whether it's just me, but what's your sense of that?
I think we prefer it against it because then you're seeing cars and potentially they're all parking in front, which is what we're all trying to avoid. I understand it, it's just, it's not as. Just in terms of the public view, it's nicer to see grass or plantings than it is cars and driveways.
I think with landscaping, I think the idea is you have layers of landscaping, from trees to hedges to hydrangeas. So you can, as the car approaches, you can kind of pass through these layers and experience the house as you're driving by.
And to the west of the driveway is actually like a stone patio, the length of the house.
Sorry.
Or a walkway or sidewalk.
Like a deck, you mean?
Yeah, it's a little, I guess it's a front patio, front porch.
Okay, and then it's a stone frontage and stone sill up to the foundation, is that correct? Am I saying here?
Yeah.
So, any other comments from the board right now? And then we can ask, just to consider some of the things that we've discussed, and next month we would hope that we have a few more brains present, people present to digest this.
Yeah, is it possible to just get a little clarification what we should come back with, because it wasn't clear to
Absolutely,
me.
should we just go down the line?
Again, the stonework, you're basing it on this particular location, or we are. It's site specific for each thing, and just to think about perhaps some alternative surface on those high walls of the structure. The tall window, maybe you can break that up a little bit up between the garage and the second story. It appears that there might just be one cross member of
Yeah, it's a
metal in there. Okay, but there's not stone crossing between,
Yes.
right? Yes. So it is one large piece. I would prefer something to be done with the 3 foot vertical on the south.
When you say something to be done, sorry.
Some alternative to that long two-story piece, the piece that extends to the south.
The glass.
Yeah. That's the residence portion, right?
No, it's the social wing. It's actually part of the den. So we didn't want the den to be blasted with sunlight to have large windows. So we
Right.
just put a 3-foot window there, and then to also get light sort of higher into the space and to look at the proportions of the facade, we extended it to be taller.
Okay.
But just to understand, would you prefer a wider and shorter window or?
I
don't
would
understand.
prefer, what I found kind of offensive is the 2.5-story really tall tower kind of things.
Oh, it's only
It's a story and a half.
Yeah, it's a
but
story and a
it's,
half.
What, 17 feet or?
It's actually 15 foot.
15, okay.
So would breaking that up into two equal size pieces in the upper attic space and then down in the living space would that be more agreeable?
In my mind, it breaks up this probable night illumination type of situation. You say it goes into the attic? There's no lighting in there?
No, it's a 1.5-story space.
Yes.
Don't bring light down.
So
It's a hair.
Yes, I misspoke.
Anything else from Ms. Murphy?
And you're working on
Just the driveway.
right, the driveway.
Yeah.
And with the driveway, I'd encourage you, Mr. Woodsma, there's code provisions as to where the driveway can even be placed, which is outside of our purview, that's building inspector.
Yeah.
So that's your pit stop for that.
Thank you very much.
So just for clarity, do you have any further questions? I hear from the board, possible reduction of stonework, possible reduction of glass. Is that a sufficient overview?
I think so.
Okay, do you have any
I
other
think so.
questions for us?
The driveway, I was unclear, are we doing that with Mr. Woodsma or?
Mr. Woodsma, the building inspector, so correct me if I'm wrong, John, we can't have the parking area be in the required side or required front.
In the required side or required front, so I can advise to where parking areas can go, spaces that are needed. As far as how the driveway is directed across the property, our code, other than separation of driveway from another property or another driveway, is moved on it. So that would be up to the ARB's purview as to where the driveway of the property.
So you kind of have to work, I don't want to say backwards from there, but with your design, keep in mind where the car can eventually be parked. Which way the driveway will terminate.
Okay.
Because I don't want to be here a month from now, and that's the issue, the driveway, so they can come back again.
Well, does the board have any specific recommendations as to where the driveway?
I would personally, I would prefer something that's short from the street to the garage. That just seems to be more in keeping with the traditional layouts for us. Would you agree with that statement?
I think so.
There, you can use parking field stone, right, where your car's not gonna sink through the grass, but
Grass
it can,
pavers.
yeah.
Grass creek, yeah, sure. But it still has to fit within the areas where
Right,
parking is allowed by code.
That allows you some ability to maintain a green area. John, am I out of order with the lighting of the surface, the walls?
The way that you have your lighting shown is between your doors, which creates a condition on our code that we call wall washing, which is against our lighting code. You may look at footlights for your doors, to recenter the lights over the glazing itself, so it's not so lighting up the wall of the house the way that it's shown.
You have an issue with those other lights with the transom above?
I mentioned that, but I'm not sure that I have the support to push on that. To be honest. I just find that it's a lot of glass. But I'm living in something that was built in 1951, so.
Okay.
That's no
It's
glass.
all relative.
It's all relative. Farmhouse was built in 1895.
Well, I thought the windows, the glazing was so strong. our strongest position here with 19%.
It's all relative, what your life has been through. Okay, very good, thank you.
How many people are usually on the panel? Just out of curiosity?
There are 5 on board and 2 off.
Okay.
Usually.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Okay, motion to adjourn.
We have one more.
Motion to adjourn.
Second,
I'm sorry, to adjourn that
Oh, I'm sorry.
application. Okay. Keep your shirt on.
Yes.
Is there a motion to adjourn? Emily, is that you?
yes,
Second?
sorry.
First.
Adjourn, me too.
Okay,
I'm second.
okay.
Oh, sorry, what am I supposed to do? No.
No,
Oh,
you're
okay.
fine.
I
We're
was
not
thinking
adjourning
about
the
something.
meeting, we're adjourning the application. Okay, now we're up to 35 seconds.
Yes.
Okay, just to be clear,
Yes.
these photographs don't really echo the color of the sheet. Just say yes.
I will definitely agree, and it just shows you the deceptive nature of rendering.
Okay.
Just housekeeping, could you just put the name on the record?
Sure.
Both of
Strata, managing member of Strata Design Build. I'm here to also introduce Gregory Breitbart, who along with his wife Delilah David are the proud owners of 35 Site.
Okay.
And I'd like to just walk through, you might say, the architectural plan, but then as to tell you in your own words what it means to him. So yes, this is the 1740 mock topping house. And if we could go instead of to the survey, if we could back up and go to this. No. So maybe it's the second one.
Yeah.
Oh, did somebody put them in order? Oh, thank you. Wow, okay. So that is the house as we see it today. It is first building period house. When they say circa 1740, it could possibly be earlier. But it's definitely first building period because of the shape of the structure and also because of the central chimney. This is how buildings were built in America in the pre-Revolutionary War period and even right after that. The idea here is that what I've learned in working on this project for such a long time is that when this house was originally designed, there wasn't much thought given to how do you really live in the house? How do you cook? How do you raise a family? If you were to think back to how the interior rooms were used in this house when it was first built, well, the room that's facing north, that large back room that is now has a fireplace of its own, that would have been the kitchen because they would have been cooking on the fireplace. You know, a large pot on the fire. And you've all seen the work that we've been doing on the inside. Structurally, this house has gained so much integrity in terms of its ability to withstand anything going forward, seismically or weather-wise. If we can just go to the next image.
This is what we're talking about. So what we're proposing is to add a proper kitchen so that Greg and his family could actually live here year round. And I'll let him talk about his plans personally and the kids going to school and all. But the idea is that this could have taken all sorts of shapes. If you look at 232, I didn't bring it, but if you look at 223 Main Street in East Hampton, what we did there was we took the third oldest building in East Hampton Village, and we extruded an addition off the back of the building that was 2 stories. So this isn't anything like that. This is a very modest proposed kitchen put onto the back of the existing building. And here are some additional views. Abby, if you just want to go through them. There we go. It shows you a little bit more of the plan with the arbor. Thank you. And we can just keep going as well. Here you begin to see, that's it. Let's stay on that a second. Here you begin to see where there's an existing fence. We would now have a fence that is basically arborvitae that would no longer look like a fence, but would be a green wall. We go to the next one. Yeah. And here it is on the west elevation. So now you're looking at the house in this view from Sag Road. Now, there's no landscaping. Obviously, you know there's a tall hedge and everything that's on the road. But what is called into question here is that if not here, where would you put this proposed addition? And when you look at the history of how, in historic periods, how additions have been put onto historic buildings, this is indeed the most logical place for it to go. The fact that it's modest and that it's a single story, not 2 stories, makes great sense and is consistent with, I heard you mentioning the Secretary of the Interior Standards before, and a few different applicants, including this, that would conform. We go to the next one. So here you're looking at it as if you were seeing the back of the building looking toward Montauk Highway. And it's as I say, a simple 1-story structure. And the next one, thank you. That's the close-up of it. So we're taking advantage of the existing porch, and we're just literally adding this at the end of it. Now,
The porch was the kitchen.
the porch was the kitchen.
Oh,
Right. And if you remember, John, I mean, that kitchen was probably created in the 70s. And it was built at on two different applications from what my records and looking at the Southampton town file. So can you go back one, Abby? One more? Okay. So pretend this isn't here, right? The way this was added onto was there was first an addition here, and then there was an addition here. And you can look at that with the framing, because the framing, remember, the framing bumps out. So it's sort of like saying, and I'm just guessing now, not looking at the record, that someone said, gee, this was a great idea, we have it approved, but you know what, it's not big enough.
Right.
We need to add a little more to it. But they never changed the width of the building. That extruded extension is still very narrow.
Right.
But they made it work because that's what met their needs. But it doesn't meet the needs of a growing family with children, and that's why we're proposing this. It also doesn't necessarily meet the current zoning regulations, which is something else that we'll have to deal with. But we didn't want to just come to you after going through that to get that approval. We wanted to come to you first and get your feedback on what we're doing. Can we keep going, please? One more. So that would be the entrance to the building facing west. That's that's parallel to Sag Road.
Right. Yeah.
And one more. And one more. That's it. That's the width of the addition. of the proposed addition.
What are the dimensions of that?
I'm gonna say that those dimensions are about 18 feet wide, almost 18 feet, almost an 18-foot square.
Comes out to, I think, a little over 4.
Initial thoughts are not sold on the extensions on the top of the new windows.
Okay,
Um,
can we go back to the? So John,
specifically on this.
on the side,
on the
yes, I
side
understand that, right,
road. Yeah,
okay,
the top window, I don't have an issue with.
I understand, but you're referring to this,
Yeah.
in this.
Yeah.
In fact, these are the original windows,
Yes,
and this would match the original window.
that's what I prefer.
I understand.
Okay.
Can we go further back? I'd like to show you this because we're about to come to the board at the April meeting. One more, please, Abby. Oh, wait, stop. Okay. We're about to come back at the April meeting and ask for permission to include this window and that window, which currently does not exist. Yeah. And although we don't have to ask the ARB's approval, we are going to create a, using to the proper code, going to use a Bilco scape egress unit and an egressable window in the basement. Abby, can we go to the, go forward again to the west elevation? One more. Oh, no, we're going, I want to go the other way. Sorry.
Right, there was a Bilco right there in that picture.
Well, yeah, but I just want to show you this. Okay, stop, yeah, just go back. Right here, there is a window in the basement, pre-existing, right, just a small, like Anderson window. There's another one in the front. Well, next to that Anderson window, about 2 feet, we want to put an egressable window that meets code and make that basement room into a proper bedroom. And it's, you know, it would, we've been talking with John about it. Right now, it's not, it's only meant to be like a wine cellar or a playroom. And I'll let Greg tell you why
Is
the bedroom is needed.
proposed to have a basement as well? or
No, it's not. It might have to have a crawl space.
Right.
Does it have an issue? Do you have an issue if it's a full basement or a crawl?
I just was curious.
Yeah, I think it's got to have at least a crawl space because of the way we want to run the mechanicals back to the kitchen. And that's it. It's just meant to introduce the idea. And speaking of introductions, let me introduce Greg.
It's me, Joel. First off, thanks for working with us on this house, and you guys have granted a couple of approvals. Appreciate it. I think Robert's expressed, you know, my interest, my wife's interest. In this house initially was, you know, wasn't just the property. We actually sought out, you know, an older home. The fact that it was historic was beneficial to us. You know, we were excited about that. Obviously, it comes with you know, approvals and some restrictions, but we embraced that. The reason, you know, we're here and the reason that we're looking to do this is really an evolving, you know, life circumstance. When we originally bought the property, we live in Connecticut. It was potentially a summer house that we were going to live in for a couple of years before our kids are older. As we've gotten to know the area more, Psychophonic, the one-room schoolhouse, you know, and everything that it has to offer, as well as work flexibility, there's a desire to be able to live here full time and try to make that work for an extended period of time, potentially forever. And now we also have a second child on the way, and so there's just evolving for us as a family. Our situation's evolving, you know, and that's making us think about, you know, how this property is going to work for us. As is, you know, the home had 3 bedrooms, maybe even technically 4. We removed some of those because they were so small and impractical. And so the basic bedroom gives us that 1 extra room, which would be helpful. But for us, you know, to not just live here for a couple of years or use it as a summer house, but to really live here full time, you know, we need, you know, a larger cooking space. It's a very, very small galley kitchen. And just some additional living space to make the property more practical for us. As we approach this, I worked with an architect to come up with these initial plans, and you know, as we approached it, for me, my interest was making it appear, you know, to not change the nature of the property, not because I think that that's what you guys want, but that's actually what I want. You know, we bought the property because of the way it feels, and that's what we want to keep. And so, you know, as we thought about how do we practically add more space, you know, for a kitchen, you know, we started thinking about, you know, where we could position it, started looking at code, you know, and just realizing historically, you know, any other location, you know, either also doesn't meet, you know, code and would need a variance, or more so would just not be historically accurate in how these homes are built traditionally from the back. And my feeling that I had when I first saw the house the first time was this house looks unfinished. You know, you look at this period home, it's very common design to have, whether it's a salt box or plumbing, you know, and they start building off the back. There's usually some type of competing structure in the back, and this home just has this thing coming off that was built, I think maybe in the 70s and the 60s. And it feels unfinished, and we want to finish it. We want to finish it, you know, not exactly the same as the salt box and the historic structure, but also in a way that, you know, that doesn't detract or you know, feel more significant than the salt box. And just to comment on the transoms, that's something that we wrestled with. You know, what we're trying to figure out. You know, I know we have architects on board, so you know, opinions and advice would be appreciated. Is just trying to balance having some level of not modernity, but you know, some real light in the kitchen on the east side, which is not, you know, visible from, you know, from Montauk Highway or Sad Road, and having a little more ceiling, you know, window height there, but also within that same room, if we have the lower windows, you start getting into kind of a weird architectural, you know, appearance, because that's one big open kitchen in that room. Of, you know, how do we balance this out? That's where we came up with the idea of replicate the historic windows and just add the two pane transom above, to try to keep, you know, as consistent of a look as possible.
Just out of curiosity, that this middle, like, what are y'all using gas space for?
The connector?
Yeah,
So as of right now, that's a kitchen, and it has like a small area for a dining table. That's what's currently there.
but
The
what do y'all,
plan-
yeah,
So it's very weird from a flow standpoint. You walk right into the kitchen.
right,
There's a stove right there next to a wall. It's not very practical, or you know, it's beyond quirky.
Yeah.
And so the idea is to create a small room that, the case
Like a
would be
mudroom.
on both sides, it would be like a mudroom entry room.
mm-hmm,
Then have the area with the French doors, that would be like a farmhouse table, but also kind of a walkway in front of the farmhouse
Right.
table that goes into the kitchen, which would be another case opening. And so it creates a real kind of separation,
Right.
a nicer flow, and a real entrance to the house.
yeah,
Whereas right now, it's probably the least desirable aspect of the property is you just walk into a 9-foot wide galley kitchen. On the front.
y'all even cook in there?
You know, our front door, unless they reroute Montauk Highway, our front door is never going to be used. You know,
Yeah.
to the front of the house, Montauk Highway is not really,
Right,
you know, never it's the natural entrance
Right.
at this point because of the roads.
Is this back door, that doesn't exist right now, is that correct?
There's not.
Okay. I was thinking,
The which one? On the salt box?
yeah, on the full front.
No, that's there. It's a Dutch door.
Oh, I'm sorry, Tom.
Oh,
Yeah, no, that is an existing
oh,
Dutch door.
Okay.
what we're proposing is in that rendering, the window to the left would be new,
Yeah,
the window to the right exists.
Right.
And then the window as you wrap around the corner would be new.
Right.
And they would match, they would be matching the old existing windows.
designs, yeah. The new kitchen, you've got a 6 panel over the door. Again, I understand the lighting thing, and that faces east, sunrise. I think it's gonna be plenty bright. Yeah.
Did you just say? Repeat what you said, you had your hand over your mouth.
This 6 pane over the door.
Yeah.
Keeps the lighting going there. This looks a little awkward. The tall 2 pane window there. But I would listen to Nick's interpretation on that. And whether you, I mean, yes, you do want something a little bit different with the new structure. But this is a little odd looking, but
I think it's a great old house.
Isn't it?
And I think this is all your version of what you'd like to do, and I don't know if there's a right or wrong to, I think if the scale is in keeping, and I think the location is fine, and there's things I like to do, and I'm sure Tom has some ideas, but it's all good.
Yeah, well, we're open to those ideas.
Yeah, I mean, to me, just one idea is that, and then if you look at the Mulford Farm, which is what I typically use, it's like a classic. There was change of plane. Your house is completely, it's almost modern in its traditional sense. There's a layer in the exterior and there's windows punched in, but if you look at the Mulford Farm, there's eaves and flying gutters and
absolutely
all kinds of cool details that you can incorporate. And with the windows also, they're planar, but in the old days, they would have like a triple hung unit and it would be planarly different, which would change the way that the depth of the wall feels. I personally would, go to some of these. My father lives in Stonington and there's lots of examples in that town. But I'd probably have a little more fun with it and get into those details of.
I'd send him to Weathersfield.
Yeah.
In Connecticut.
Stockbridge, and there's lots of.
Yeah, but
I think just have a little more, I just think even the first building at Mulford, when you first enter, you'll see that the soffit and the way that the roof overhangs and the fascia board is actually quite sculptural.
and that flying gutter.
Yeah.
And the grade, how the grade.
It's all hand hewn, all really, so I would head in that direction because when I first saw this, I originally thought it's actually, there's a modernist architecture that was based on a Vermont architect who ended up doing this style, which looks like this, as a revision to traditional. I'd actually go in the opposite direction.
On the Sag Road side, in the rendering, it's actually how it is today in a way, because we left the original paint, we haven't reshingled the kitchen because of this discussion. The preference would be to have that be white clapboard, or potentially white painted shingle to try to create one, we like the look, but two, to try to create a separation between the different structures and the original structure.
A lot of the original materials were odd shaped too, like the V shape a lot. So rather than going smaller, I think like they had a California board, I think in the 50s. That was actually kind of traditional, but I would play with it in scale.
Yeah.
Because somehow then, I don't know if the white bothers me, but just the integrity of that material.
Yeah.
Like maybe go to some old hand hewn, some other shape kind of thing. I think that's it.
We did the Mulford Barn.
Oh, yeah.
In the 90s. But the house is incredible.
There was a house on Foster Crossing in Southampton that I believe was a village historic landmark, that is very similar, I'm gonna use the word breezeway, but
Yeah.
connecting
Yeah,
unit between two additions.
yeah, if I were gonna add on to the housing house on Main Street in Southampton, I would do something.
Thank you for talking.
All right,
Thank you.
okay. Somebody looking for it?
When,
Thank you all.
Okay.
Can I just say one thing? Coming up with that. Yes, I've been-
Oh, it's- it's still recording.
This phone. Sure, how about you?
Hang out.
Oh, no, I'll wait. I'll wait. Greg, I'm gonna wait.
Sure.
So, you're away?
when is it?
Yeah.
For April?
Yeah.
It's great to see you.
Oh, you mean for the next meeting? Yeah,
So it'll be between now and April 22nd.
yeah, whenever, whatever
Is
day.
that all right?
Actually, I just remembered I'm gonna be out of town 28th, anything before. It's fine.
The 20th of March.
April,
Oh, that doesn't affect us.
No.
yeah.
That's fine. Okay.
Next meeting, April 28th, you say?
22nd.
22nd.
Oh, please, don't miss that information.
So, you can do committee of good for April, yeah?
Sure.
Okay, very good, we got that down. Then we adjourn. All those in favor?
Aye.
What was it?
Oh, who made the motion?
I don't know.
Oh, what are
Well, you
you
need to
doing
know.
up there? What are you?
Okay, we'll do Nick and
Yeah.
Ellen. In that order, very good.
So Nick and Emily?
Yeah. Okay, very good, thank you. All right, now we need to turn off the recording.
That's good.